If you're putting your money into Nigerian real estate, you need to know about one specific document. Honestly, it can be the single thing that separates a secure, lifelong asset from a total, devastating loss. Today, we're breaking down the deed of sublease because what you don't know about it could cost you absolutely everything. Let's dive in.
So, picture this. You've found a property in a fantastic, well-planned estate somewhere in Nigeria. It looks perfect. You're ready to make the investment, but do you really know what you're buying? The real answer is buried in one document, and if you misunderstand it, the consequences for your investment could be, well, catastrophic.
All right, so the first thing you have to get your head around is this. With the deed of sublease, you are not buying the whole pie. You're just getting a slice. And that one distinction, it's fundamental. It changes everything about how you need to think about your ownership.
Let's break down the chain of command here. You've got the primary leaseholder, right? That's usually the estate developer, and they probably have a long 99-year lease from the government. What they're doing is granting you a piece of their interest, and the key word here is shorter. Your term has to be shorter than theirs. It creates a hierarchy. You're a tenant to your landlord, the developer, who is also a tenant to the government.
Just think of the developer's 99-year lease from the government as the entire pie. When you buy a plot in their estate, they are subleasing you a slice of that pie for, let's say, 98 years. The most critical thing to remember is that your slice is completely, 100% dependent on their pie. If the developer's lease gets revoked for any reason, your slice, well, it just disappears right along with it.
And this brings us to a really critical point where a lot of investors get tripped up. Many people think they're getting a deed of assignment, but what they're actually signing is a deed of sublease. And believe me, they are not the same thing. The difference between them determines what you actually truly own.
See, with a sublease, you're getting a brand new, smaller, and totally dependent interest in the property. But with an assignment, the owner transfers their entire remaining interest over to you. You literally step into their shoes and become the new direct owner of that lease. So the question you have to ask is, am I becoming the new owner here, or am I just becoming a tenant to the person selling to me?
Now, because your ownership is so dependent, it creates a whole unique set of risks. So we're going to cover the major red flags you have to look out for, because ignoring these, well, it could put every single penny of your capital at risk.
Let's just let that sink in for a second. Your ownership is dependent. Your rights are subordinate. They are not absolute. Your entire investment, everything, is hanging by a thread on the validity of another, bigger lease that you have zero control over.
And what that means is the original lease document, the one between the developer and the government, known as the head lease. That document is everything. If that head lease has a flaw, if it gets terminated, revoked by the government, or just expires, your sublease can be completely wiped out along with it. Your rights can never outlive the rights of the person who granted them to you. It's that simple.
So what are these hidden landmines in that head lease? First, and this is a big one, lack of consent. The government, as the head lessor, has to legally consent to your sublease. Second, the timeline. If there are only a few years left on the head lease, your asset has a built-in expiration date. Third, restrictive covenants. These are rules in the original lease that you are now legally bound to follow. And finally, forfeiture clauses. These are like tripwires that could allow the government to terminate the entire lease, taking your property down with it.
Let's look at an example. If that original head lease was for 99 years and 39 of those years are already gone, the absolute maximum term you can possibly get is 60 years. Any sublease that promises you more than that is legally worthless. And this directly impacts your property's value in the long run and, your ability to even get a bank loan on it later.
Okay, so we've identified the risks. I know, it sounds a little scary, but now let's talk about the solution. Here is your actionable plan, your checklist, to make sure you move forward as an informed and, most importantly, a protected investor.
Here it is, your 5-point protection plan. Number 1, you have to verify that the developer's title is valid and clean. 2, confirm that you have written consent from the government for your specific sublease. 3, scrutinize that head lease. How many years are actually left on it? 4, review every single rule and restriction you're about to inherit. And 5, ensure your own deed is properly stamped and registered. And listen, do not just take the developer's word for any of this.
And that last point on registration, it's absolutely critical. In Nigeria, any transfer of interest in land needs the governor's consent to be fully legal. Without it, you don't have what's called a legal title. All you have is a much weaker, equitable interest. And that basically means your claim is sort of recognized, but it's not officially on the books.
it leaves you wide open to other legal challenges. Proper registration is your only real shield.
So look, the goal here is not to scare you away from these kinds of investments. Not at all. It's to transform you from a potentially vulnerable buyer into an empowered investor, someone who knows exactly what questions to ask and exactly what documents to demand.
And you know, our source material really hits the nail on the head when it says this. Understanding the deed of sublease isn't optional. It is absolutely essential if you want to have any kind of sustainable success in this market. Treating it as anything less is a massive gamble, one that most of us can't afford to lose.
So, we're going to leave you with this final thought. Go back and look at your documents. Ask the tough questions. Is your slice of the pie sitting on a solid foundation, or is the whole pie about to disappear from under you? The security of your investment really does depend on you knowing that answer.